Did you ever hear the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks? Well, buckle up, kids, 'cause you're about to. For that is what is on my mind this night as I can't sleep. And yep, underneath that creepy and mysterious Star Wars hood was a man wearing a beanie in his house. Gosh, it got hot all of a sudden when I took my hood off. That's wrong. So like the lighting is so bad in here. It just keeps getting worse. I just put in new light bulbs and it got darker. It's to the point where I have to turn on a flashlight to see if the lights are on. Oh well. But the batteries ran out in the flashlight, unfortunately. Yeah, so how did wearing a beanie become a Gen X stereotype? I mean, I don't mind it. They're comfy. But like, it's kind of like how chewing gum is an American stereotype. I never chew gum. Like, I am some stereotypes and I am not others. Either way, what's on your mind? What time is it? It is 3:55 a.m. You know what irks me? Like, that probably just shouldn't, is everything. But let's talk about one thing in particular, which is people who would say 3:55 a.m. in the morning. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why that irritates me. It just does, because if you say 3 a.m., it's just my inner editor that's always at work, never at play. That's the tragedy of Glenn Clark, the author. Not really, I'm cool with it. Just like the beanies, like, I don't care. It just means I don't want to do my hair. I don't want to... I just like rolled out of bed, insomnified, thinking about Jar Jar Binks. And how, like, okay, so, have you heard of Star Wars? Have you seen Star Wars, like, in particular, the prequel trilogy, episodes 1, 2, and 3? Like, I was just thinking, like, it popped in my head earlier today, and I can't get it out of my head, just how those movies, like, okay, so I'll lose people who haven't seen Star Wars, but that's probably not very many people. But I encourage you, like, hear me out even if you haven't heard Star Wars, because then maybe you can go watch these movies and have this angle to look at them from that's kind of interesting. So, those movies, right, you think they're all about the fall of Anakin Skywalker, right? This hero who rises and falls. The rise and fall of a hero. But I think those movies are actually about the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks. And not the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. Okay, so here we go, kids. Buckle up. Because Uncle Glenn's about to get crazy. So Jar Jar Binks, let's review the story from just the perspective of Jar Jar Binks is the focal point of this trilogy. So episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Jar Jar Binks, like, here's how we look at this. Jar Jar Binks, you are here. You, the viewer, you are here. You aren't a Jedi. You aren't a Sith Lord. You aren't a politician in the Galactic Senate. No, you are this goofy, wide-eyed innocent. You are Jar Jar Binks. You are here. Like, there's a map of all the Star Wars characters that you're looking at to try to acclimate yourself to the reality, there's an arrow pointing at Jar Jar Binks' head that says, "You are here. We are Jar Jar Binks." So, wide-eyed innocent, you know, just like a goofball who can't catch a break, right? This guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and like, he can't, like, this guy's just not making it, pretty much, Jar Jar Binks. Like, he's just been kicked out of his own society, for being clumsy, pretty much, with like a death sentence should he return. They're like, "No, dude, you are so backwards, and just get out, or we'll kill you. If you come back, we'll kill you." So he is just wandering around in the woods, right? And this Jedi Knight bumps into him, pushes him out of the way from getting run over by a military vehicle, that he's just oblivious. He's oblivious to what's going on in the world, in the galaxy. Just trying to get by, Jar Jar Binks. And like, so the Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, starts talking to him, and I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events. It's not like I've seen this movie 1,000 times or anything, which I totally have. Well, I don't know about 1,000. But many times. I've seen this film many times. So I'm trying to pinpoint when it starts to happen. When what happens to Jar Jar Binks really starts to happen. The whole "you are here" journey begins. And of course it's obviously when Qui-Gon Jinn bumps into him and they make introductions or whatever. And so Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, they get Jar Jar to lead them to his underwater city that he's been banished from, that he's, not making it. He's not making it in this city. So who are the Jedi? The Jedi are the perceived heroes of this story. The Jedi are the good guys. Because there's no perfect metaphor. Like, I've been kind of going over in my head as I was lying down, just how do they fit in the metaphor? Are they like, they're the spiritual good, the spiritually good people. That's a way to put it. Like, these are the people who are trying to make the world better for everybody. And spiritually evil people are the people who are trying to make the world better for themselves at the expense of everybody if need be. So that's how we're going to look at the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi, spiritual good, trying to make the world better for everybody. Are they perfect? No. The Sith, spiritual evil, trying to make the world better for themselves. So Jar Jar Binks gets mixed up with the spiritual good, the people trying to make the world better for everyone. Now Jar Jar Binks in this metaphor represents the common man. You are here, as I said. Jar Jar Binks is the common man, woman, whatever gender. It's, I'm using the term generically, I guess, just as, because he's not even a human. It's like he's the common citizen. Let's say it that way. But I'll probably bounce back to common man because it's just in my mental vernacular, and this is stream of consciousness. When I do an I Can't Sleep video, it's totally just whatever comes out of my mouth, and I don't worry about it because that's my thing in these videos, is just turn on the camera and have a ramble. But so they get him to take him underwater to his city. They meet with his big, boss Nass, like the governor of the Gungan city. Jar Jar Binks is a Gungan, and so he offers them transport and whatever, and then Jar Jar is screwed because he wasn't supposed to go back home, right? And so, like, okay, so here's the key line that sets off this whole thing for me as this being the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks. You are here. Like, so he's in handcuffs, right, and they're gonna take him away and punish him for coming back into this society where he couldn't make it. The common man, he just can't catch a break. And so Qui-Gon Jinn, he tells Obi-Wan, because he's trying to save him, he's like, so the manipulation begins. Qui-Gon says to the guy, I saved Jar Jar Binks' life. He owes me what your people, like he's using their culture to get his way. He owes me what you call a life debt. So he's mine now. He's coming with me. You're not gonna. And then Obi-Wan's like, why the hell? This guy is just a goof, but why are you sticking your neck out for the common man? Like, we have greater good that we're trying to do. And it's kind of like, that's interesting to me because, like, a lot of times the people fighting for the good of the many lose sight of the few. They lose sight. And now I'm going into Star Trek stuff, but the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Well, I mean, that's kind of like the blind spot of organizations that are trying to make the world better for everyone, is that you can't. You can make the world better for a lot of people, but there's always going to be someone who falls through the cracks. And Obi-Wan was kind of like, we have bigger and better things to do. We're Jedi. Why are you... And so, I mean, here's the line. The line is, this Gungan could be useful. So there you go. Like, so the people trying to make the world better for everyone realize that the common citizen of the world could be useful. Like, they can do more good with the help of the commoner. So from there, Jar Jar Binks gets swept up into this epic where he's just stumbling through episode 1. Like, so he winds up following the Jedi on their quest to make the world a better place, to very, very oversimplify the entire story. There's so much else going on, but details-wise, but that's not what we're about. We're about Jar Jar Binks, who's just, Misa not know what's going on. So, so we don't need to know what's going on because we are here. We are Jar Jar Binks. So he doesn't know what the hell is going on. He gets on a spaceship with these Jedi. Like, he flees the planet that's being occupied by an enemy force. Like, the queen of the... Like, there are two different governments on this planet, the Gungans and the Naboo. And the Naboo are the humans. They live in their fancy Italian villas and stuff, and, like, have a queen, and, the Gungans live underwater and in the swamps and stuff, and they don't get along so much. They don't really interact that much. But so Jar Jar winds up fleeing with the queen as well, who the Jedi get out, because we're trying to make the world a better place. We got to get the Queen out, get her to the Galactic Senate to get them to intervene in this situation, and help the Naboo out. So, long story short, the 2.5 hour movie short, Jar Jar winds up on the capital planet of Coruscant, where the Galactic Senate meets. Like, he's the common man now interacting, rubbing shoulders with queens and politicians and with the Supreme Chancellor, like, the leader of the galaxy. Like, Jar Jar Binks is sharing air with these people and still doesn't know what the hell is going on. So, Qui-Gon drags him along. Just, this Gungan could be useful. We don't know how, we don't know, but we may need to manipulate this guy at some point, is really what's being said. So, to get our way, to get the greater good. So, what happens next? Like, the Gungan was useful to them. He got them a transport through the water from, they were trying to get away from the Trade Federation. And he got them away, so he was useful there. But then, he's talking to the Queen, and she's worried because she went to the Senate, dirty politics happen, and they're, they're gonna push this matter off. Let's discuss it in committees. Like, maybe we'll help, maybe we won't, maybe the Supreme Chancellor's too weak to get anything done, and so now here's, everyone's being manipulated, so you have these manipulators, right? So the senator from her planet is all just casually suggesting, they're not going to give us what we want, Queenie, the Supreme Chancellor's too weak. Really, the only way to get what we want is to call for a vote of no confidence in the Chancellor and get him replaced. Because you've got to save your people. And now this guy, you realize, is the mouthpiece of spiritual evil. He's the guy, he is the Dark Lord of the Sith, secretly, in disguise. And so he's using her compassion for her people to manipulate her into serving his agenda, which is to get himself elected as the Supreme Chancellor. So what does she do to save her people? She calls for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership, and it goes down just the way that her buddy Senator Palpatine had wanted it to go. Eventually he gets elected Supreme Chancellor, and he did it by manipulating a good politician, an idealistic politician. So here's Jar Jar Binks again, us, in this crazy world, and he's sitting there staring out the window with the Queen, who's just like, yeah, because they still haven't resolved this issue in the Senate. It's going to take forever. What can she do? The Naboo don't have an army. Like, they don't have any way to fight the Trade Federation off of their planet. And if she goes back there, they're going to kill her and just take power. So Jar Jar just casually mentions, oh, the Gungans have an army. And so later on, so then she's like, you know what, we're going to go. She's turning things over in her head. Basically, she's turning over in her head. Now, she's a political good. There's political good, political evil, spiritual good, spiritual evil. And in the midst of it, the ping pong ball they're all hitting back and forth is really Jar Jar Binks. So they get on her ship, the Jedi go with her, they go back to Naboo, and they're like, why the hell are you going back to Naboo? They're going to kill you. And she's like, But I, the political good, have an idea to manipulate the common citizen to make this work. So, you know, she's like, I have a plan. What's your plan? She looks right at the Gungan. Jar Jar Binks, I need your help. Uncle Sam wants you. So, you know, she gets Jar Jar to go to his people. That, you know, she goes take him back to the Gungans, and she pleads her case to them about, you know, we gotta fight the Trade Federation off, because if they take over the planet, that screws you too. It doesn't just screw us, because, you know, political good, she is looking out for her own, but she's also looking out for them, and just the whole good of the planet, right? And so Jar Jar, though it wasn't his agenda, right? It wasn't, he's a ping pong ball being manipulated by the spiritual good and the political good at this point to get the common citizen to do what they need them to do in order to get what they want. So he's now being rewarded for that. He's now a general in the army. The common man is now a soldier. He's a warrior. But he's not. He's just a guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Which, you know, if you meet enough people, you realize that's everybody. Every politician, everyone in power is just another person who doesn't necessarily know what they're doing. But they're either trying in an effort to serve the greater good, or they're trying in an effort to serve themselves. So, General Jar Jar Binks clowns his way through the Battle of Naboo, while the people in power, you know, the Queen and the Jedi, they're off doing the stuff that needs to be done. Because, see, Jar Jar Binks, General Jar Jar, his whole army thing is admittedly a distraction. The political good knows that the Gungan army is just there to take the laser fire while we are infiltrating the heart of this problem and getting these people off the planet. So he, you know, they're sitting there fighting and dying, the Gungans, and they're a mere distraction that serves the greater good. But they've been manipulated into this. And so again, long story short, good guys win. And everybody celebrates, and Jar Jar is a war hero now. So, General Jar Jar. So then, you know, episode 2, we catch up with Jar Jar 10 years later. And, you know, because he's the great General Jar Jar Binks of the Battle of Naboo, he's now a representative of his planet. So he's hanging out, he's in the Galactic Senate with former Queen Amidala, now Senator Amidala. And because their terms are very limited, the royalty of Naboo is elected. They elect their queens and kings, and so she served 2 terms, and then the queen asked her to continue serving them in the Senate, and Jar Jar represents the Gungans of Naboo in the Senate. So he's now in the middle of the storm, the political storm, and he is still, you know, he's not he didn't come in there with an agenda. Like, he got manipulated in. Like, peace with the Gungans serves the greater good. The Gungans need to have a representative. General Jar Jar, who we pushed into that role, we're going to use you to maintain that alliance between the Gungans and the Naboo. So here he is on the Senate, no agenda of his own. He's going along with Queen or Senator Amidala to serve the greater good. But now, of course, former Senator Palpatine is Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, thanks to his manipulation of the idealistic nature of the political good. He's pretending to be on their side. Really, he has his very own evil Dark Lord of the Sith agenda to serve himself. He is both. He is the combination of the spiritual evil and the political evil. He is the embodiment of why we need separation of church and state, y'all. I mean, so are the Jedi. Like, the thing is this... there's all this religious stuff mixed up in politics in the Star Wars universe, and that leads to some issues. So, innocent Jar Jar Binks, now representative of his people, like, so Amidala goes off somewhere, and okay, so the political evil, this political and spiritual evil that is Chancellor Palpatine, of course he wants to start a war. He wants to start a war to further his agenda, not to serve the greater good. But he needs the common man to buy into this, right? Or it's not going to happen. That's how politicians get their way. They have to manipulate the people. So Amidala's off doing something else. And because there have been assassination attempts on her and stuff, so she's like being protected by Jedi. Like, okay, I'm not gonna get into that story. So like, Jar Jar's there alone, representing his entire planet at this point. And so the political and spiritual evil, they know what they're doing. They have a conversation right in front of Jar Jar Binks. And they're like, gosh, we could do so much good if only the Supreme Chancellor had the emergency powers that he wanted. Well, because there's like a growing conflict in the galaxy. There's this separatist movement that actually Palpatine is behind. Like, he's manipulating everyone. So he wants this to escalate into a full-scale galactic war to serve his agenda of getting emergency powers that he will totally relinquish when the conflict is behind him. He's totally going to let go of that power. But they have this conversation in front of Jar Jar, and they're like, gosh, the Chancellor needs an army. He can, but he can't get an army because, like, they haven't had a standing army in like 1,000 years. And the galaxy, the Galactic Republic, hasn't had a standing army. But he needs a war. He needs an army. Secretly, he's brewing an army of clones that he can't get into action. So, he needs to get past all the political debates. And he wants these powers. And so he's talking about this with someone in front of Jar Jar, and he's all, gosh, who would have the courage to propose such a radical amendment that I be granted emergency powers for the duration of the conflict with the Separatists? Who could possibly help us? Gosh, if only Senator Amidala were here. Senator Amidala being Jar Jar's hero. Like, she represents to him the political good. He trusts Amidala, and they're saying, oh, well, if Amidala were here, and these guys, they're savvy, they know way some more about politics than Misa do. Like, that's what he's got to be thinking. Like, he doesn't know what's going on. So, but he wants to do good. He wants to be like his hero. So if the Supreme Chancellor, who's totally cool with Amidala, thinks she would be the one to grant him emergency powers, so what happens? Jar Jar Binks, the war hero, who fully represents the common citizen of the galaxy, goes before the Galactic Senate. Misa propose. Like, he proposes that they give the emergency powers to Palpatine so we can quickly stop this conflict, that we can do something about it and get out of all the deliberation. And everybody buys it. Like, they vote. Palpatine gets his emergency powers, and he's all, oh, thank you, gosh, who would have expected this? I totally swear to relinquish these powers when this conflict is over. And as my first act, I'm going to create the Grand Army of the Republic. And it just so happens there's all these clones over on the planet Camino that have been trained their whole life to fight wars. So there you go. Jar Jar Binks starts the Clone Wars. Not because he had an agenda, but because he was being manipulated by the agenda of others. And so then, of course, they go put out the fire on one planet, but that's not enough. There are conflicts breaking out all over the galaxy between the Republic and the Separatists, and now the Republic has an army to match the army of the Separatists, the droid army of the Separatists. So it's not an in and out thing. Palpatine's only exit strategy is, I get all the power. So jump to 3 years later, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And note, Jar Jar Binks is barely there. Jar Jar Binks is in one scene, and he has one line. And that's easy to dismiss, but to me that's one of the most powerful moments in the entire trilogy. Because, the Jedi serving the greater good have come back from saving the Chancellor. Like, he manipulated them. Like, it's, this guy's a master manipulator. He's manipulating the spiritual good, he's manipulating the political good, all to do the bidding of the political and spiritual evil. But he couldn't have done it without the common man buying into it, without Jar Jar Binks. He could not have done any of this without Jar Jar Binks having been manipulated by both sides. So, Palpatine and his entourage walk onto the scene to greet Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi who just rescued him and stuff, like, because they have to meet with the politicians and all that, because they just killed one of the big guys in the Separatist army, Count Dooku. And so, they need to talk to politicians about everything. But it's significant to me that Jar Jar Binks is standing right beside Palpatine when they walk up. Like, over the 3 years of the war, Jar Jar Binks, that wide-eyed innocent from the planet Naboo who had no idea what was going on and still doesn't. The war hero who had no idea what he was fighting for. Like, he's gone. Like, that, I mean, this is the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks. That he gets manipulated by everyone to the point that he's just gone. Like, he's just another politician at this point, serving agendas that are beyond his comprehension. He's the one who started the war. But it was never his agenda, you know. He's the one who gave the Chancellor these emergency powers that eventually lead to the fall of the Republic, to the Chancellor becoming the Emperor, and like democracy being wiped away. Like, the best line in the movie is, because, you know, they vote, you know, Palpatine keeps manipulating them into thinking he's serving the greater good, that he's bringing order to a chaotic galaxy, and that's why we're reorganizing the Republic into the first galactic empire, and everybody in the Senate's cheering and clapping, and Amidala is sitting there heartbroken, and she says, "So this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause." Oh, I love that line. But none of it would have happened without Jar Jar Binks, the most important character in the prequel trilogy. So his one line, let's get to that, because like, he's just standing there amongst Palpatine's retinue. Like, he's just there. And, like, I guess as the politicians are walking away, and this is the last we see of Jar Jar Binks in the prequels, they're walking away, and I guess maybe he steps on someone's foot. Like, you don't really see what happens, just you hear someone say, "Watch it." So his last line, his very powerful last line, is, "Excuse me." Excuse me. Pardon me. Forgive me. Jar Jar Binks is asking for forgiveness. Like, again, just not aware of his own power. But it's poignant to me, it's very powerful to me, that this guy, the common citizen, gets bounced around by everyone trying to do good and by everyone trying to do evil. He's in the midst of it, and none of them can do anything they want to do without Jar Jar Binks going along with it. Jar Jar Binks speaking up for their agenda, thinking he's serving the greater good. There's no war, there's no empire without Jar Jar Binks, and his last line is a request for forgiveness. Jeez, I got all emotional about that. But you know, it's kind of like any of us. If we think we're doing something to serve the greater good, and we realize all too late that we trusted the wrong people, or that we made the wrong choice, and that it's snowballed out of control, and there's nothing we can do except say, "Excuse me, my bad, sorry, sorry I caused the downfall of democracy." Like, I don't know. But that's the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks, and that's the tragedy of the common citizen, is that we are pawns. We're all being manipulated, be it for the greater good or for evil. As the common citizen, everyone is trying to manipulate you. So it's, important for us to really, really, really look into things that are going on in the world around us, to really do our best to understand it, and to not just put blind trust into either Senator Amidala or Chancellor Palpatine, the Amidalas and the Palpatines of the world, because one of the most well executed elements of the prequel trilogy is that within the context of that reality, it's incredibly difficult to tell the good guys from the bad guys. Like, we, the viewer, know. We're eating popcorn and we're like, oh, Sith, bad guy. But the characters don't know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. The characters don't know Chancellor Palpatine is the Dark Lord of the Sith. Not until it's too late to do anything about it. Like, he gets everything he wants by the end of episode 3. And even then, the common citizen has no idea. Like, they just see him giving his speeches about law and order and protection, and they don't know enough. They don't have the information. They are all Jar Jar Binks. So, right, like, we may be voting for politicians who we feel serve the greater good. They are still manipulating us, even if it's for the greater good. They aren't necessarily telling us everything. They want to get us to sign on to their cause, right? And I think every voter thinks they're voting for the one who serves the greater good. But that's why I think it's important to listen to both sides, to really hear the politicians in their own words, and watch what they do. And it's so hard because who has the time? Because we all have to work 800 jobs just to get by. Like, who has time to do actual research, to make an actual study of politicians and what they vote for versus what they say they stand for? Because that, to me, is where I figure it out. It's like, okay, watch this politician. What's he saying that he's all about? Okay, now what's he voting for? It's like border crisis, I guess. There's Texas. I live in Texas. We're fine. I promise you, we're fine. We're not being overrun by Mexican criminals. It's not happening. But anyway, that's another point. So, but what I'm saying is, you look at politicians crying about the border, the crisis at the border, blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes to vote to do something about border security, and they vote against it. Why did you vote against it when you're so upset that nothing is being done about it? Oh, and then if you watch them talk, really, really, really watch every word they say, they will tell you why. Even if it's a slip up, it's because they didn't want their political opponent to look like he solved the problem. It's like they want the problem solved, which is mostly a fabricated problem. I mean, yeah, there are issues at the border, but it's not nearly the crisis that it's being blown up to be. And they know that, but they need you to buy in to the crisis narrative that they aren't at all interested in solving. Because, once they get into power, you're not going to hear about the border crisis anymore. If that happens, if they get the White House or whatever. But, that's what you're seeing. And, to be fair, you also have people, because I'm talking Republicans and Democrats. The Democrats, what angers me there is that we hear all about how great the economy is, right? Oh, the economy is so great under Joe Biden. Like, oh, more jobs have been created than were created under, like, we lost jobs under Trump. Right, true statistics. Job number went down with Trump, up with Biden. The problem is you need 3 of them to pay the bills. So what difference does it make to me if the stock market is great and billionaires can buy more yachts? What difference does it make to me if there are more jobs available if I have to work 3 of them to pay my rent? Like, that's a manipulation, and they, haven't had the votes to change things. Because again, you watch the politicians. What do they say they're about, and what do they vote for? So personally, like, I would still vote Democrat because they are at least trying. But the narrative that the economy is great for me, the economy is working great for you, Jar Jar Binks, is horse crap. That is a manipulation. The narrative from the other side about the crisis at the border is horse crap. Like, yeah, the thing is, yeah, the economy, largely, it's doing great for big business, for billionaires. Profits are through the roof, but that doesn't help Jar Jar Binks. And yes, there are issues at the border that need to be addressed, that aren't being addressed. But it isn't the invasion that the Republicans are fanning the flames and trying to get Jar Jar Binks to believe in. Look, Jar Jar, there's a crisis at the border. You need us in power because we'll take care of it. We'll stop the evil foreigners from coming into the country and taking your 3 jobs that the Democrats have given you from you. You need those 3 jobs. In fact, you maybe need 4. Like, I don't know. I vote Democrat because of what I see people say and do. Like, how do you vote? And if you see a politician vote for something that would help the greater good, and then another politician vote against it, I'm just, whoever's I have to put all that manipulation aside and look at what's really going on. And it's hard to do. It's exhausting. It's much easier to be Jar Jar Binks and just trust the politicians you believe in to know better than you. And they will then use you to start a war. Like, they will then use you to serve their agenda blindly, like Jar Jar. Gosh, I'm revved up. And it's almost 5 in the morning. I might as well just wake up and have some coffee, or get up and have some coffee and just enjoy my day. But I needed to get that out of my system because it's been in my head, just the tragedy of Jar Jar Binks. You are here. Thanks for sitting up with me.